Hello, Music Multiverse listeners, and welcome to Beyond Your Radio and the first episode of Keep It Dark 2025. Tonight, you're not quite going to believe it, but we're going to the abyss of jazz. This show is all about music that could be considered dark. Dark in some sort of right, musical accompaniment. There's not a genre, I believe, that escapes it. I believe even religious music explores the dark thematical points and parts. In fact, I recently had heard a Christmas song on one of the Christian channels that the title was actually "O Come All Ye Unfaithful." I assume they were talking to Glenn Close, Michael Douglas, Diane Lane, or even Gwyneth Paltrow. But anyway, country, the blues, you'll eventually come to some artist or band that, let's face it, will surface, become obsessed with it, or finds an inspiration or life lesson within the dark sides of life. How they share it will leave the final impression, and how dark they actually go, well, that's their business and how we take it. The elements of jazz here are teeter-totter in the episode. So while I make no promises where this dark audio experience will lead you, I can say, well, that the faint of ear might survive this one, despite the different kind of bleakness this finds. Tonight we explore an interesting dark doom jazz rock quartet from England that, while their base might be rooted in jazz, where they take it seems to be traveling into a darker region of genres infused in that root, entangled and sometimes rotting or tormented. I thought we'd just explore their 2024 album Hierophant from October 18th of 2024, and then a little bit of their past and body of jazz doom anxiety. This is 5 de Hierophant. So, will you join me? Will you keep it dark? I certainly hope so. What's in a name? Everything. Well, according to Live, shame. And for this, let's start with the band name, which feels dark, but is it? The Hierophant stands for righteousness or sacredness, hierarchical order, maybe, orthodoxian kind of features, and moral righteousness. An exoteric figure in contrast to the esoteric symbolism of the high priestess. Reverse, the Hierophant can be interpreted as standing for unorthodoxology, being original, and a huge amount of gullibility. Okay, so we can go either way with like a tarot card, right? That's what we're really looking at. So 5 righteous or 5 gullibles. Well, that's confusing. Wait, how many people are in this band? It's a quartet. Well, who's supposed to be the 5th person? We've got John Roffey, saxophone. Dan doesn't have a last name at this juncture. He does tom, drums, bongos, yembo, zither, tabla, triangle, gyro, shakers, whistle, cymbals. Then you got Chris, doesn't also want to give his last name. Drums, temple bells, djembe again, shakers, gong. So that's kind of interesting. And then there's a Middle Eastern hieroglyphical name that I don't know, but it does say something about Geryon, Geryon, if you follow the link. Guitars, bow guitars, ragdung, violin, grand piano, and effects. And there are a lot of wonderful effects in this. So that's 4 guys. So the 5, the 5th is the mystery person, maybe? Not quite sure there. So what about the album name? Apeiron. It's a Greek word meaning that which is unlimited, boundless, if you will, infinite or indefinite. Okay, the makers of this album, it's getting a little bit dark in its sense. There's a metallic jazz doom that can live in the boundless space and negative, indefinite darkness. So let's go. Starting at the end, utilizing this devilish saxophone into the darkness of a doom riff with a jazz template that sort of sinks into this, I don't know, arena of psychedelia in most areas. But when the riff gets bombastic and the sax is slighted, the metal hits. But what sneaks up on you without you really realizing it is the progressive nature of the overall musicianship. These four artists at the helm of whatever interchanging instrument they're milling in the dark atmospheric sounds that paint a very bleak but interesting, intriguing, and sometimes anxiety-based soundscape. While the riffs can hide and put the other instruments in shadow, they do more than lurk. They sometimes creep, pounce in a wonderful prog effect, at least on their third full-length album, or record, which this is. There's no question that the masterpiece at the center of all of this is the song Initiatory Sickness and the epic three-part like bridge work that takes from a dark atmospheric jazz psych to impending doom to a progressive riff and jazz fusion like that climax that's even got noise infliction in it. The record does exactly what's intended, mood and audio depiction. And there's no denying the space it filled with talent, composition, all kinds of avenues of the band forward that they could possibly do. But what about what's been behind them? These other records since 2015, probably. There's also an EP of 5, The Hierophant. So they named their album EP that. Well, you would not have thought that there could be a song title in that, could you? Well, in fact, there actually is. Well, I mean, this isn't Bad Company, or Big Country, but 5 The Hierophant has 5 The Hierophant as a song. In fact, it's so well done that they did it again on the second album, having a part 2. So take that, Unforgiven, Metallica. So let's talk about the full-length debut, though, for a second, because I think the album and the EP have a very big difference. But remember, I went backwards, so that kind of has a different take on the whole experience. So do you hear more drums? Feel them more? I think you absolutely do. Like there's more of a pulse and a crack to those albums over the 2024 release. I'm not saying it's wrong either way. What I'm saying is I just feel it's heady in the track, and it's heavy in the track, and it elevates the psych doom to a more jazz fusion, stoner rock, doom rock kind of thing that might have been intended to give more accessibility, whereas this record is a much more a reach. It's not as accessible as that particular record, but maybe it was more accessible because I went back. Remember, people hear doom or dark and they start to just make assumptions and steer clear. They might think there's going to be a gloom, dark vocal that is, raspy or Cookie Monster, as some would say, and they stay clear. This is depression's encouraging angel and devil, however you see it, but we'll get to that in a second. The band's catalog is doom, psych, jazz fusion. That has a lot to offer the listener of this, for that wheelhouse. There's no question in it. Have they been unheard or unappreciated? Well, I certainly believe so. I wouldn't have put them on this particular show. Their sound, while unique in some degree because of that saxed-up doom alt psych going on, they have a generous amount of progressive exploratory sounds, and those are on top of the guys that they have to conceptualize music into a space that's heavy with intrepidation, with a need, with a beguiling undertone that makes the music extremely intense. I think I do like the debut, a hint over the 2024 third album. And then I would say my least favorite is probably the second. But I'll let you wrap your ears around it should you choose to remain on the dark jazz, doom, psych, instrumental prog ride that this band and these albums are. Why this kind of music? There are wondrous images conjured by music like this. While I find music arenas like this healthy for ideas of setting storylines, writing, and visualizing scenes, there would be listeners who find the musicianship darkly soothing. And after a day or maybe a day of mundanity or of a professional career, they might enjoy the darker element. A sinful dark red Zinfandel and a medium rare prime rib. Fava beans and a nice Chianti if you want to go all in. Maybe it's like curling up with a great Dean Koontz novel, but only in an audio landscape kind of way. Know that this isn't elevator music unless it's plummeting to the levels of the Umbrella Corporation. You can't be afraid to go down in the darkness, as it has its beauty, tragedy, anthems, and in this case, a progressive mysticism approach that encapsulates what it is to truly be progressive, even if it is dark. Thank you for taking this journey of sound with me. We'll do it again in 2 weeks. We're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, of course, articles, videos, and a podcast just a few days away. It's all about albums, bands, artists, anything we can get our hands on. Go Beyond Your Radio with us, a real music appreciation channel. I'm Mark Kulagowski, and thank you for watching and happy listening.